The massive alien warship floated in the dark space beyond Earth's solar system, like a metal beast waiting to strike. Admiral Kethter stood in the center of his command room, his tall reptilian body covered in dark green scales that caught the light from dozens of glowing displays. His yellow eyes stared at the holographic image of Earth floating before him, showing the small blue planet that had dared to refuse his demands. "Look at this tiny world," Kethter said to his officers, his voice making a hissing sound as he spoke. "They think they can stand against the might of the Galactic Empire. How foolish these humans are." Around him, other alien officers nodded in agreement. They came from different worlds across the galaxy, but they all served the Empire. Now, some had scales like their admiral, others had gray skin and large black eyes, and a few looked almost human except for their blue-tinted skin and extra arms. All of them had learned to fear and respect the Empire's power. Commander Vex High, a thin alien with 4 arms, moved closer to the display. He pressed several buttons with his long fingers, and the image changed to show Earth's defensive systems. Hundreds of small ships appeared in the hologram, orbiting the planet like tiny insects. "Admiral," Vex High said, "our spy ships have counted. Their entire fleet. They have only 400 ships capable of fighting in space. Most of them are very small, barely longer than our shuttlecraft." Kethter laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. 400 ships? We have 3,000 ships in this battle group alone. And these human vessels are so primitive. Look at their weapons. The display zoomed in on one of Earth's largest warships. It was less than 2 kilometers long, tiny compared to the alien flagship that stretched over 15 kilometers from front to back. The human ship's weapons were clearly visible on its hull. Missile launchers, energy cannons, and defensive turrets that looked crude and simple. "They still use chemical explosives for many of their weapons," said another officer, a pale alien, with a large head. "Their energy weapons are basic plasma and laser systems. We mastered such technology 5,000 years ago. And yet," Kethter said, his voice growing louder, "these primitive beings refuse to pay tribute to the Empire. They refuse to acknowledge our superiority. They actually believe they can fight us." The command room filled with the sounds of alien laughter. Some clicked their tongues, others made chirping sounds, and a few rumbled deep in their chests. To them, the idea of Earth resisting the Empire was the funniest joke they had heard in years. "Sir," Commander Vex High said, trying to control his own amusement, "should we simply destroy their planet and be done with it? We could finish this in a few hours." Kethter raised one of his clawed hands. "No, not yet. I want to enjoy this. These humans need to understand exactly how helpless they are. Send them another message. Make sure they know we are giving them one last chance to surrender." A communications officer activated the long-range transmitter. The message began broadcasting toward Earth on all frequencies, ensuring that every human with a radio or communication device would hear it. "People of Earth," Kethter's voice boomed across space, "this is Admiral Kethter of the Galactic Empire. You have refused our generous offer to join the Empire peacefully. You have ignored our demands for tribute. You continue to act as if your tiny world matters in the grand scheme of the galaxy." The Admiral paused, letting his words sink in. Around him, his officers watched the display showing Earth, imagining the fear that must be spreading across the planet as billions of humans heard this message. "We are being patient with you," Kethter continued, "because the Empire values all life, even primitive life like yours. But our patience has limits. You have one of your solar days to reconsider your position. Surrender your world to Empire rule. Agree to pay the required tribute, and your people will be allowed to live under our protection." The alien admiral's voice grew darker and more threatening. "If you refuse, We will demonstrate why over 6,000 worlds have already chosen to join the Empire rather than face our military might. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your resistance is pointless. This is your final warning. Choose wisely. The transmission ended, and silence filled the command room for a moment. Then Kethter turned to his tactical officer, a heavily built alien with thick gray skin. "What is the status of our fleet?" he asked. "All ships are in position, Admiral," the tactical officer replied. "Our main battle group consists of 2,800 ships. We also have support vessels, supply ships, and troop transports. In total, we have over 3,000 vessels ready for combat." "And their orbital defenses?" "Minimal, sir. They have some weapons platforms orbiting their planet, but nothing that could threaten even our smallest ships. Their ground-based missile systems are equally primitive. We estimate we could eliminate all their defenses within 2 hours of beginning our attack." Kethter nodded with satisfaction. This would be easy, just like all the other conquests. The Empire had been expanding across the galaxy for thousands of years, and they had developed the process to a fine art. First, they would demand surrender. If the target world refused, they would demonstrate their overwhelming power with a limited attack. Most civilizations surrendered immediately after seeing what the Empire could do. "Sir," called out the communications officer, "we are receiving a response from Earth." "Put it on the main screen," Kethter ordered. The holographic display changed to show a human male in a military uniform. He appeared to be middle-aged, with short gray hair and a stern expression. The nameplate on his uniform read Morrison. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," the human said, his voice calm and steady. "We have received your ultimatum, Admiral Kethter. Let me be clear about Earth's response." The alien officers leaned forward, expecting to hear the usual plea for mercy or desperate attempt at negotiation. Instead, Captain Morrison's next words surprised them. "Earth will not surrender to the Galactic Empire. We will not pay tribute to alien conquerors. And we will not bow down to threats, no matter how many ships you have pointed at our world." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the alien command room. Kethter's yellow eyes narrowed as he listened to the human continue. "You say our technology is primitive. You mock our defenses. You assume we are helpless because we are outnumbered. That is your mistake, Admiral. Humans have never surrendered easily, and we are not about to start now." Captain Morrison paused, looking directly into a camera as if he could see through space to stare at the alien admiral. "You want to see Earth's defenses? You want to test human resolve? Then by all means, make your move. But understand this, you will not find us to be the easy conquest you expect." The transmission ended, leaving the alien command room in stunned silence. For several long moments, no one spoke. Finally, Commander Vex-High broke the quiet. "Admiral, surely they are bluffing. No species has ever chosen to fight the Empire when faced with such overwhelming odds." Kethter's scales rippled with anger and confusion. In all his years of service, in all the Empire's conquests, he had never encountered such defiance from a clearly inferior civilization. It made no sense. These humans had to know they could not win. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "they need a more direct demonstration of our power. Prepare the fleet for a limited strike. Target their orbital weapons platforms. Destroy half of them, but leave their planet intact. Once they see how easily we can eliminate their defenses, they will reconsider their foolish bravery." "Yes, sir," his officers replied, moving to carry out the orders. But as the alien fleet prepared for battle, none of them noticed the small disturbance in space far behind their formation. Something was moving in the darkness between the stars, something that did not appear on their sensors, something that had been waiting for exactly this moment. The Empire had made their first mistake when they assumed Earth would surrender without a fight. They were about to make their second mistake by underestimating what humans were truly capable of when their backs were against the wall. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a secure bunker that had been built to survive nuclear war, President William Hayes sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by his most trusted advisors. The room hummed with the sound of computers and wind, air conditioning systems, while large screens on the walls showed satellite images of the alien fleet positioned at the edge of the solar system. The president looked tired. He had not slept well since the aliens first appeared 3 days ago. His brown hair was messy, and his usually neat suit was wrinkled from hours of emergency meetings. But his eyes were sharp and focused as he listened to the reports from his military commanders. "Mr. President," said General Alex Thompson, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, "we have completed our analysis of the alien fleet. The situation is worse than we initially thought." General Thompson was a tall man with silver hair and numerous medals on his chest. He had served in 3 wars and had never backed down from a fight, but even he looked worried as he spoke. "Their technology is far beyond anything we have ever seen," the general continued. "Our best estimates suggest they are at least 200 years ahead of us in terms of weapons and defense systems. Their smallest ships are more powerful than our largest battleships." Secretary of Defense Patricia Wells, a smart woman in her 50s who had spent her career studying military strategy, leaned forward in her chair. "Sir, if we tried to fight them with our conventional forces, we would lose. Not just lose badly, but lose completely. They could destroy our entire fleet and not even notice the damage we might cause to them." President Hayes rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the decision that lay before him. How long would our defenses last if they attacked? "Hours." "Sir," replied Admiral Kevin Stone, the head of the Space Defense Command, "maybe less. Their weapons can punch through our strongest armor like it was paper. Our shields cannot stop their energy beams. We would be completely helpless." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this grim assessment. Outside, they knew that millions of people were watching the news, wondering if their government could protect them from the alien threat. Children were asking their parents if the monsters from space were coming to hurt them. The entire world was looking to this room for answers. "However," Secretary Wells said, breaking the silence, "we do have one option that might change the situation." President Hayes looked up with interest. "What option?" "Project Nightfall, sir. The experimental program we began 15 years ago." The president's expression grew thoughtful. He remembered the classified briefings about the project, the enormous amounts of money that had been spent, and the promises that it would give humanity a fighting chance against advanced alien civilizations. At the time, it had seemed like science fiction, but the government had funded it anyway, just in case. "The project is complete?" he asked. General Thompson nodded. "Yes, sir. 2 months ahead of schedule. Dr. Amanda Foster can give you the details." Dr. Foster was a small woman with gray hair and thick glasses. She had spent most of her adult life working on theoretical physics and advanced propulsion systems. She rarely spoke to politicians, preferring to stay in her laboratory. But today she was here because the fate of humanity might depend on her work. "Mr. President," Dr. Foster said, her voice quiet but confident, "Project Nightfall has produced a single ship unlike anything else in our fleet. We call it the USS Retribution." She pressed a button on her tablet, and the wall screens changed to show a sleek, angular spacecraft that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship looked dangerous, like a weapon that had been designed by people who understood war very well. "The Retribution uses technology that we developed by studying crashed alien ships over the past 50 years, Dr. Foster explained. We have also incorporated theoretical breakthroughs in quantum physics and materials science. The result is a vessel that can compete with advanced alien technology. Admiral Stone leaned forward. What are its capabilities? The ship can become nearly invisible to sensors by bending electromagnetic radiation around its hull, Dr. Foster said. Its propulsion system does not just move through space, but actually fold space around the ship, allowing it to travel much faster than conventional engines while remaining undetected. She paused and looked around the room. The weapons system is based on principles that push the boundaries of human physics knowledge. We have created a coherent energy beam that can focus incredible amounts of power into a very small area. President Hayes studied the image of the ship. How does it compare to their vessels? Sir, we believe the retribution is roughly equal to their medium-sized warships in terms of firepower and defensive capability. Against their larger ships, it would be at a disadvantage, but it would not be helpless. One ship against 3,000, the President said quietly. General Thompson cleared his throat. Sir, the ship is not meant to fight their entire fleet. It is meant to send a message, to show them that we are not as helpless as they think we are. The retribution is commanded by Captain Ryan Blake, Admiral Stone added. He is one of our finest officers. He has been training with the new systems for 2 years and knows the ship better than anyone. President Hayes had heard of Captain Blake. The man had a reputation for being calm under pressure and creative in difficult situations. If anyone could handle such a dangerous mission, it would be him. What exactly are you proposing? The President asked. Secretary Wells stood up and walked to the wall screen. Sir, we send the retribution to confront the alien fleet, not to destroy them, but to demonstrate that humanity has capabilities they do not know about. We show them that attacking Earth would not be the easy conquest they expect. It is a risk, General Thompson admitted. If the mission fails, we lose our most advanced ship and our best chance of defending ourselves. But if it succeeds, we might convince them to leave us alone. Dr. Foster adjusted her glasses. Mr. President, the aliens are assuming we are primitive, because that is what they can see. Our conventional fleet is indeed no match for them. But they do not know about the retribution. They do not know that we have been preparing for this possibility for decades. The element of surprise is our greatest advantage, Admiral Stone said. Once they see what we are capable of, they will have to reconsider their plans. President Hayes stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the mountains. Even though they were deep underground, the window was actually a screen that showed the view from the surface. He could see the peaks covered in snow, the forests that stretched for miles, and the clear blue sky that might soon be filled with alien warships. If we do this, he said without turning around, we are essentially declaring that we will not surrender. We are telling them that humanity would rather fight than submit. Yes, sir, General Thompson replied. That is exactly what we would be telling them. The President turned back to face his advisors. And Captain Blake understands the risks? He volunteered for the mission, sir, Admiral Stone said. When we explained what we needed, he said he would be honored to represent humanity. His crew? All volunteers as well. 43 officers and enlisted personnel, all of them fully trained on the new systems. They know this might be a one-way mission. President Hayes looked around the room at the faces of his advisors. These were people who had spent their lives serving their country and protecting its people. They were asking him to make a decision that could save humanity or doom it. How long do we have? He asked. The aliens gave us 24 hours, Secretary Wells replied. Captain Blake could launch within 6 hours and reach their position in another 18 hours. The President nodded slowly. Then we do it. Send the retribution. But make sure Captain Blake understands his mission. This is not a suicide attack. This is a demonstration. We want to show them that underestimating humanity was a mistake, but we do not want to start a war we cannot win. Yes, sir. His advisors replied as the meeting broke up, and the military commanders left to prepare for the mission. President Hayes remained in the bunker, staring at the image of the USS Retribution on the wall screen. In a few hours, that ship would carry the hopes and fears of the entire human race into the darkness of space. He just hoped it would be enough. Captain Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, watching the last of his crew members take their positions at their stations. The ship was quiet, except for the soft hum of advanced systems that most humans had never seen before. Through the main viewing screen, he could see Earth growing smaller as they moved away from the planet that had been his home for 38 years. Blake was not a tall man, but he had the kind of presence that made people listen when he spoke. His dark hair was cut short in military style, and his blue eyes showed the confidence that came from years of training and experience. He had commanded 3 different ships during his career, but none of them had been anything like the Retribution. "Captain," said Commander Lisa Adams, walking up to stand beside him. She was his second in command, a woman with red hair and green eyes who had graduated at the top of her class from the Naval Academy. "All stations report ready for departure." "We are." "Cleared to leave Earth orbit." Blake nodded. "Take us out, Commander. Set course for the alien fleet." The Retribution began to move faster, leaving behind the space stations and defensive platforms that protected Earth. Blake knew that many people on those stations were watching his ship leave, wondering if they would ever see it return. Weight of their hopes and fears pressed down on him like a heavy blanket at the tactical station. Lieutenant Commander Paul Rodriguez checked his weapon systems one more time. Rodriguez was a quiet man who had spent years studying alien technology, trying to understand how their weapons worked. Now he was responsible for operating weapons that were more advanced than anything humans had ever built. "Captain," Rodriguez said, "all weapon systems are online and ready. The main cannon is charged and functioning within normal parameters." "Good," Blake replied. "Remember, our mission is to send a message, not to start a war. We fire only when necessary, and only to disable, not destroy." At the navigation station, Lieutenant Corinne Mitchell plotted their course toward the edge of the solar system. She was young, only 26 years old, but she had been chosen for this mission because she understood the Retribution's advanced navigation systems better than anyone except the scientists who had built them. "Sir," Mitchell said, "current. Speed will get us to the alien fleet in 18 hours. I can push the engines harder if you want to arrive sooner." Blake considered this. Part of him wanted to get there quickly, to face the aliens and get this over with. But another part of him knew that patience was important. The longer the aliens waited, the more confident they would become. And confident enemies made mistakes. Maintain current speed, he decided. Let them think we are taking our time to consider their demands. The more relaxed they are, the more surprised they will be when we arrive. In the engineering section deep inside the ship, Chief Engineer Danny Walsh monitored the revolutionary propulsion system that made the Retribution possible. Walsh was a big man with gray hair and hands that were always dirty from working on machines. He had been building and fixing spacecraft engines for 20 years, but the Retribution's drive system was unlike anything he had ever seen. The ship did not push itself through space like conventional rockets. Instead, it created a bubble of twisted space-time around itself, allowing it to move faster than the speed of light while remaining invisible to most sensors. The technology was so advanced that only a few dozen humans in the entire world truly understood how it worked. "Captain." Walsh's voice came through the ship's communication system. "The quantum drive is performing better than expected. All systems are stable, and we have plenty of power for whatever you need. "Thank you, Chief," Blake replied. "How long can we maintain stealth mode?" "Indefinitely, sir. The stealth system draws very little power, and we have enough fuel to operate. For months if necessary." Blake was glad to hear this. The stealth system was one of their most important advantages. As long as the aliens could not see them coming, the Retribution could choose when and where to reveal itself. At the communication station, Lieutenant Jenny Parker monitored radio signals from both Earth and the alien fleet. She was a thin woman with blonde hair who had learned to speak several alien languages during her training. Her job was to listen for any changes in the enemy's plans and to maintain contact with Earth Command. "Captain," Parker said, "I am receiving regular updates from the alien fleet. They are still in the same position, and they do not seem to be preparing for immediate attack. They appear to be waiting for our response to their ultimatum." "Any word from Earth?" Blake asked. "President Hayes sends his regards, sir. He says the entire world is counting on us." Blake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders once again. 43 people on this ship, 8 billion people on Earth, all depending on him to make the right decisions in the next few hours. "Captain," Commander Adams said quietly, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you really think we can convince them to leave us alone? One ship against 3,000? Blake was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer. He had asked himself the same question many times during the past few hours. "Commander," he said finally, "this is not about winning a battle. This is about changing their perception of us. Right now, they see us as primitive creatures who will surrender rather than fight. We need to show them that they are wrong. And if they decide to attack us anyway, then we will have bought Earth some time to prepare better defenses. And we will have shown every human that we did not go quietly into the night." At the sensor station, Ensign Bobby Clark kept watch for any signs that the aliens had detected. Their approach. Clark was the youngest member of the crew, only 22 years old, but he had trained on the Retribution sensor systems for over a year. "Sir," Clark reported, "we are now 6 hours away from the alien fleet. They still show no signs of detecting us. Their sensor sweeps are passing right through our position without finding anything." Blake smiled. The stealth technology was working perfectly. The aliens were so confident in their superior technology that they were not even trying very hard to look for hidden ships. "Lieutenant Mitchell," Blake said, "begin reducing speed. I want us to approach their position slowly and carefully. We get one chance to surprise them, and I do not want to waste it." "Yes, sir." Reducing to 1/4 speed. The Retribution continued its journey through the darkness of space, invisible to the alien sensors that swept the area around their fleet. Inside the ship, the crew went about their duties with quiet efficiency. They all knew that the next few hours would determine the fate of their species. In his private cabin, Blake reviewed the mission parameters one more time. His orders were clear: demonstrate human capabilities, avoid unnecessary casualties, and convince the aliens to reconsider their invasion plans. It sounded simple, but he knew that the reality would be much more complicated. The alien admiral would not be easily impressed. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds, and they had probably seen many different types of resistance. Blake would need to show them something they had never seen before, something that would make them think twice about attacking Earth. He looked at the tactical display on his wall screen, showing the positions of the alien ships. They were arranged in a standard battle formation, with the largest ships in the center and smaller vessels spread out around them. It was the formation of a force that did not expect serious resistance. That would be their first mistake. Blake returned to the bridge and took his position in the captain's chair. Around him, his crew continued their preparations. In a few hours, they would drop out of stealth mode and announce their presence to the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Captain," Commander Adams said, Final systems check complete. All departments report ready for combat operations. Blake looked around the bridge at the faces of his crew. These people had volunteered for a mission that might very well be suicide. They had left behind families and friends, knowing they might never see them again. But they were here because they believed in something bigger than themselves. "Thank you all," he said. "In a few hours, we are going to show the galaxy what humans are capable of when we are pushed into a corner. Let us make sure they remember." This day, the USS Retribution continued its silent approach toward the alien fleet, carrying with it the hopes of an entire species and the determination of people who refused to surrender without a fight. The USS Retribution dropped out of stealth mode just 200 meters from the alien flagship, appearing on their sensors like a ghost materializing from nothing. Captain Blake had timed the moment perfectly. The massive alien ship was in the middle of broadcasting another threatening message to Earth when the human vessel simply appeared beside them. Admiral Kethter was standing in front of his communication console, speaking into the camera with his usual arrogant tone. "Humans of Earth, your time is running out. In 2 hours, if you have not surrendered, we will begin destroying your orbital defenses to show you the futility of resistance." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the alien command center. The reptilian admiral stopped speaking and spun around as his sensor operator called out in panic. "Admiral, there is a ship directly off our port side." "It appeared from nowhere, sir. It was not there 10 seconds ago." Kethter's yellow eyes widened in shock. His scales began to change color, shifting from dark green to a lighter shade that indicated fear and confusion. "That is impossible. Our sensors detect everything within 1,000 kilometers. Nothing can approach without our knowledge." On the main display screen, the image of Earth was replaced by a view of space showing the alien fleet. There, clearly visible among the massive alien warships, was a single human vessel. It was much smaller than the alien ships around it, but there was something about its dark, angular design that made it look dangerous. "Sir," the sensor operator said, his voice shaking, "the ship is approximately 800 meters long. Its hull appears to be made of some kind of material that absorbs sensor waves. That is why we did not detect it earlier." Commander Vexhai moved quickly to his own console and began running scans of the human ship. "Admiral, this vessel is unlike the other human ships we have observed. The energy readings are completely different. The technology appears to be much more advanced." On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Blake watched the alien flagship through his main viewing screen. He could see the panic and confusion spreading through their command center as they tried to understand how a human ship had appeared so close to them without warning. "Open a channel to their flagship," Blake ordered. Lieutenant Jenny Parker worked at her communications station. "Channel open, sir." Blake stood up from his captain's chair and faced the viewing screen. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady, showing no fear despite being surrounded by 3,000 enemy ships. "This is Captain Ryan Blake of the USS Retribution. You wanted to see Earth's defenses, Admiral Kethter. Here we are." The alien admiral's image appeared on the Retribution's main screen. His reptilian features were twisted with anger and confusion. Behind him, other alien officers could be seen running between stations, trying to understand what was happening. "One ship?" Kethter hissed, his voice full of disbelief. "You send one small vessel against the entire might of the Galactic Empire? Your arrogance knows no bounds, human." Blake's expression remained completely calm. "You called our defenses primitive, Admiral. You mocked our technology. You assumed we would simply surrender because we are outnumbered. That was your first mistake." "Mistake?" Kethter laughed, but the sound was forced and unnatural. "Human, you are surrounded by 3,000 warships. Each one of them could destroy your vessel with a single shot. You have made the mistake by coming here. Have I? Blake asked. Then why are your officers running around in panic? Why are your sensor operators trying to figure out how we got so close to you without being detected? Why are you afraid of one small human ship? The alien admiral's scales darkened with rage. We are not afraid of you. You are insects compared to the power of the Empire. Then prove it, Blake said simply. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez looked up from his tactical station. Captain, multiple ships are targeting us. I count over 50 vessels with weapons locked on our position. Let them target us, Blake replied without taking his eyes off the alien admiral. Rodriguez, charge the main cannon. Mitchell, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Adams, bring all defensive systems online. Commander Adams began activating the ship's defensive systems. All systems online, Captain. Shields at maximum power. The alien fleet began to move. Dozens of ships changed position to get better firing angles on the Retribution. Their weapon systems powered up, creating a light show of energy that could be seen across the solar system. Last chance, human, Admiral Kefter said. Surrender now, and we will make your death quick. Blake smiled, and for the first time since the conversation began, he showed emotion. But it was not fear. It was the quiet confidence of someone who had prepared for this moment for years. Admiral, you have spent so much time conquering primitive worlds that you have forgotten what it feels like to face a real challenge. You are about to be reminded. The first salvo from the alien fleet lit up space around the Retribution. Dozens of energy beams and plasma bolts streaked toward the human ship from multiple directions. The weapons were powerful enough to destroy a city, and they were all aimed at one small target. But the Retribution was not where the weapons expected it to be. Evasive maneuvers, Blake ordered. Lieutenant Mitchell's hands moved across her control panel with practiced skill. The Retribution twisted and turned through space, moving in ways that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. It danced between the energy beams like a leaf in the wind, avoiding damage that would have destroyed any other vessel. How? Commander Vex-High whispered on the alien flagship. No ship can move like that. They're maneuvering systems, the tactical officer reported. They are using some kind of gravity manipulation technology. They are not just moving through space, they are bending space around them. Admiral Kefter watched in growing horror as his fleet's weapons missed their target completely. The human ship seemed to flow around the attacks, as if it knew where each shot would be before it was fired. All ships, continuous fire, he ordered. Do not let that ship escape. More weapons fired, filling the space around the Retribution with deadly energy. But still, the human ship avoided every shot. Its movements were smooth and precise, like a dancer performing a routine that had been practiced 1,000 times. Captain, Rodriguez said, they are firing everything they have at us. Our shields are holding, but I do not know how long we can keep this up. Blake nodded. Then it is time to show them what we can do. Rodriguez, target the nearest cruiser. Disable their shield generators, but do not destroy the ship. Target acquired, sir. Main weapon ready to fire. Fire. The Retribution's main cannon fired for the first time in combat. A beam of pure energy, more focused and powerful than anything the aliens had ever seen, shot across space and struck the nearest alien cruiser. The ship's shields, which should have been able to stop any attack, collapsed instantly. The vessel went dark as its power systems failed. Complete silence filled the alien command center. Every officer, every crew member, every being on every ship in the fleet stared at their screens in disbelief. One shot from the human ship had disabled a cruiser that was 10 times larger than the Retribution. That is impossible, Admiral Kefter whispered. Our shields can stop anything. Apparently not. Blake's voice came through the communication channel. That was a warning shot, Admiral. The next one will be aimed at your engines. The alien admiral looked around his command center at the faces of his officers. For the first time in his career, he saw fear in their eyes. Not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. Fear of an enemy that could do things they did not understand. "What do you want, human?" he asked, his voice much quieter than before. "I want you to understand that you made a mistake when you came to our solar system," Blake replied. "You thought you were dealing with primitive creatures who would bow down to superior force. Instead, you found a species that has been preparing for this moment for decades." Blake paused, letting his words sink in. Around the Retribution, the alien fleet had stopped firing. Thousands of ships floated in space, their crews trying to understand what they had just witnessed. "You have a choice to make, Admiral," Blake continued. "You can continue this fight and discover what other surprises we have prepared for you. Or you can listen to what I have to say and perhaps learn something that will save both our species." A great deal of trouble. Admiral Kefter stared at the human captain on his screen. Everything he thought he knew about this species had just been proven wrong. They were not primitive. They were not helpless. And they were certainly not afraid. For the first time in his long career, the alien admiral was not sure what to do next. The USS Retribution moved through the alien fleet like a predator stalking its prey. Captain Blake had made his decision. Since words alone would not convince these aliens to leave Earth alone, he would have to demonstrate exactly what humanity was capable of when pushed into a corner. "Rodriguez," Blake said calmly, "target the next ship in the formation. Same as before. Disable their systems, but do not destroy them." Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez worked at his tactical station, selecting targets with careful precision. Destroyer. Class vessel. Range 400 meters. Targeting their power core, sir. Fire. The Retribution's main weapon fired again, sending another focused beam of energy across the darkness of space. The alien destroyer, a ship 3 times the size of the human vessel, shuddered as its primary systems went offline. Emergency lights flickered on across its hull as the crew struggled to understand what had happened to their supposedly invincible ship. Admiral Kefter watched from his flagship as another of his vessels was disabled by the small human ship. His yellow eyes darted between his tactical displays and the image of Captain Blake on his main screen. Nothing in his long military career had prepared him for this situation. "Sir," Commander Vexhai said urgently, "the human ship is moving toward our battle cruiser squadron. Should we order them to retreat?" The alien admiral hesitated. Retreat? The Galactic Empire never retreated from primitive species. But this was no longer looking like a fight against primitives. This was something entirely different. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Continue targeting the human vessel." But the alien fleet's weapons could not touch the Retribution. The human ship moved through space like it was dancing, avoiding every shot while methodically selecting its next target. Captain Blake was demonstrating something that no alien in the Empire had ever seen before. A small force completely outmaneuvering a much larger one. "Captain," Commander Adams reported, 3 more alien ships are moving to intercept us. They are trying to surround our position." Blake studied the tactical display. The aliens were learning, adapting their strategy to try to trap his ship. But they were still thinking in terms of conventional space combat, and the Retribution was anything but conventional. "Mitchell, take us through their formation. Let us show them how well their coordination works when we are in the middle of them." Lieutenant Karen Mitchell smiled as she worked her controls. The Retribution accelerated toward the center of the alien formation, passing between massive warships that tried desperately to target the fast-moving human vessel. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, We have a clear shot at their command ship's communication. Array, take it, Blake ordered. The energy beam struck the alien flagship's primary communication system, cutting off Admiral Kefter's ability to coordinate his fleet. Suddenly, 3,000 ships were operating without central command, each captain trying to decide on his own what to do about the human ship that was making them all look foolish. "Admiral," Vexhai said in panic, "we have lost communications with half the fleet. The human weapon somehow disrupted our entire network." Kefter's scales had turned completely pale, a sign of extreme stress among his species. He had commanded fleets in dozens of battles, conquered entire star systems, and never experienced anything like this. One small ship was systematically dismantling his forces without even trying to destroy them. "Restore communications immediately," he ordered. "We are trying, sir, but their weapon did something to our systems that our engineers do not understand." On the Retribution's bridge, Captain Blake watched as confusion spread through the alien fleet. Ships were turning in different directions, some trying to pursue his vessel, while others held their positions. Without coordination, the massive fleet was becoming less dangerous, not more. "Captain," Lieutenant Jenny Parker said from her communication station, "I am receiving multiple surrender requests from individual alien ships. They want to know what we want from them." Blake nodded. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The aliens were finally beginning to understand that they were not dealing with the helpless primitives they had expected to find. "Open a channel to the entire fleet," he ordered. "I want every ship to hear this." "Channel open, sir." Blake stood up from his captain's chair and faced the main viewing screen. When he spoke, his voice was broadcast to every alien vessel in the formation. "This is Captain Ryan Blake of the USS Retribution. I have a message for Admiral Kefter and every member of the Galactic Empire fleet." He paused, letting his words reach the thousands of alien crew members who were listening. "You came to our solar system expecting to find a primitive world that would surrender without a fight. You mocked our technology, threatened our people, and assumed that superior numbers would guarantee your victory. You are wrong on every count." Blake began walking slowly across his bridge, his calm voice carrying clearly over the communication channel. "This ship represents only a small sample of what humanity is capable of when we are threatened. We have been watching your empire for decades, learning from you, preparing for the day when you would come to our world. That day is today, and you are discovering that we are not the easy conquest you expected." On the alien flagship, Admiral Kefter listened to the human captain's words with growing unease. Around him, his officers watched their displays showing 12 of their ships disabled, their formation in chaos, and their supposedly superior technology proven inadequate against this single human vessel. "You have a choice to make," Blake continued. "You can continue this fight and discover what other capabilities we have kept hidden from you. Our scientists have been working for years to develop weapons and defenses specifically designed to counter your technology. The Retribution is just the beginning." Blake stopped walking and looked directly into the camera as if he could see through space to stare at every alien in the fleet. "Or you can accept that you made a mistake when you chose to threaten Earth. You can take your fleet and leave our solar system and report to your superiors that humanity is not a species too. Be conquered lightly." Admiral Kefter found his voice. "What guarantee do we have that you will not attack our ships as we retreat?" "You have my word as a human officer," Blake replied simply. "We are not seeking to destroy your fleet, Admiral. We are seeking to earn your respect. There is a difference." The alien admiral looked around his command center at the faces of his officers. He could see doubt in their eyes, fear of the unknown, and a growing realization that everything they thought they knew about warfare had just been challenged by this small human ship. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Blake's expression grew serious. Then you will learn why humanity has spent its entire history fighting wars against itself. We have had thousands of years to perfect the art of combat, Admiral. Until now, we have only used that knowledge against each other. You really do not want to find out what happens when we turn all of that experience against an external enemy. The communication channel fell silent for several long minutes. Throughout the alien fleet, captains and crew members waited to see what their admiral would decide. Some of them were veterans of dozens of conquests, but none of them had ever faced anything like this. Finally, Admiral Kethter spoke. "The Empire will remember this encounter, Captain Blake. Your species has impressed us today." "That was the intention," Blake replied. "We will withdraw from your solar system," the alien admiral continued. "But this is not over. The Empire has a long memory, and we do not forget those who challenge our authority." Blake nodded. "Neither do humans, Admiral. We remember our friends, and we remember our enemies. The choice of which category your empire falls into is up to you." "Very well," Kethter said. "All ships, prepare for departure. We are leaving this system." As the alien fleet began to form up for their retreat, Captain Blake turned to his crew. "Well done, everyone. Set course for Earth. Let us go home and tell them that humanity has earned its place among the stars." The USS Retribution began its journey back to Earth, leaving behind a fleet of aliens who would never again underestimate the species that called the small blue planet home. The message had been delivered, and the galaxy would never be the same.